all roads lead to Epstein? This is a question which many people are asking themselves throughout the world. Hello, my name is Caroline, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of my podcast, One Opinion from Europe. In this podcast, I take a look at issues happening throughout the world, but give you a perspective through a European lens, my lens, not the European lens. I don't think there is such a thing, but just what do I think of what is happening. Today, we will be taking a look at the Epstein files. The release of the Epstein files has been a bombshell, both here in Europe and in America. The empire built up by Epstein over a period of more than 30 years is so widespread and sprawling that I will be focusing on just a few specific issues. Namely, just to give some context to the issue, what actions are being taken currently in Europe and in America. I would like to put my main focus today on my own personal opinion. And this opinion has been forming in me for over the past 10 years, as long as this Epstein issue has been known. So, let's take a look at Europe. There have been significant repercussions here in Europe. The consequences in European capitals have been swift, high-profile arrests, resignations, and the stripping even of royal titles. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor was arrested on suspicion of misconduct in public office, the allegations being he shared confidential trade documents with Epstein while serving as a trade UK envoy. In late 2025, King Charles III had already stripped him of his titles, Prince and Duke of York. More recently, there have been moves by the UK government and Commonwealth to remove him from the line of succession. Peter Mendelsohn, a veteran politician, was sacked from his post as UK ambassador to the US by Prime Minister Keir Starmer. He was subsequently arrested in February and accused of sharing sensitive government information with Epstein, years after Epstein's conviction in 2008. Furthermore, there have been consequences for Sarah Ferguson, such as the shutting down of her charities. She had to move out of the Royal Lodge, and really nobody knows today what her situation actually is. In Norway, some of the most aggressive legal investigations on the continent have been launched. The former Prime Minister and former chair of the Nobel Peace Prize Committee, Thorbjørn Jagland, was charged with aggravated corruption because he apparently used his influence to facilitate Epstein access to international circles. There are also investigations into a former Norwegian ambassador and her husband, and even Princess Mette-Marit has had to issue a public apology for her social interactions with Epstein. Now, it must be noted that these investigations in Norway appear to be very much bipartisan and not political. Also, resignations are taking place before the results of investigations are even known or published. So this is quite a difference to what we're seeing today in the US. There have also been resignations from high-ranking officials in Slovakia and Sweden, and there are ongoing investigations in Poland, Latvia, and Lithuania. Starting in 2013, the Deutsche Bank in Germany, which was Epstein's primary financial institution, has been forced to pay fines and settlements to victims totaling over $250 million, also for compliance failures. This was because the bank knowingly profited from and facilitated Epstein's sex trafficking ring. Now, where do we stand in America? The fallout in America has often been viewed as a slow burn social scandal. There have been a few high-profile resignations, such as Lawrence Summers, the former president of Harvard. There's prize-winning professor, Dr. Richard Axel. He has resigned as leader of the Zuckerman Institute, as well as other corporate figures, including Kathy Rummler, Thomas Pritzker, and the CBS News contributor, Dr. Peter Attia. The Epstein Files Transparency Act has led to a marathon of judicial unsealing, which is proving to be a long drawn-out process and has become a central point of friction in Washington. due to selective redaction and cover-up attempts resulting in impeachment threats against DOJ leadership. Where is this going? We will have to wait and see, but it is far from over yet. And more in-depth investigations and accountability is still way ahead of us. Now, as mentioned in my introduction, I would like to focus on my own opinion, which, as I said, I formed over a period of 10 years. It has always been my opinion that just as despicable and disgusting as the Jeffrey Epstein sex trafficking and abuse of young girls are, there is much more to be uncovered. The pressure coming from Donald Trump, the US, DOJ, and their Republicans to cover up and move on is immense. For me, it seems to be along the lines of the lady doth protest too much, methinks. Slowly, details are coming out of allegations of young girls against Donald Trump. These are, however, in my view, not receiving as much attention in the media as they should be receiving. Serious allegations are being discovered against a sitting American president, and in any normal world, this discovery would lead to at least resignation, if not in-depth investigations. But you see very little mention of these allegations within the legacy media. It is more the free press that is pushing this issue. Now, it appears to me that Donald Trump has worn many of his sex escapades more as a badge of honor than as something he is ashamed of. He is already an adjudicated sex abuser, and the grab them by the P-word scandal, as well as the Stormy Daniels case, was water off a duck's back for him. I would not be surprised if ultimately many more crimes, such as money laundering, extortion, bribery, and even cases of murder, are revealed on a wide-scale global basis. It is known that in New Mexico, at the famous Zorro Ranch, state police are searching the property. Also, Jeffrey Epstein's death has never sat well with me as a suicide. He possessed so much incriminating information on famous and wealthy people that his suicide was, in my view, a very fortunate coincidence, to say the least. The investigations are bringing up inconsistencies, such as with the security film, guards and prisoners movement, as well as his method of dying, apparently not being consistent with a hanging, but being more consistent with a strangulation. I am confident the truth will come out someday, and we all know that there is no statute of limitations on murder. That brings me to the subject of statute of limitations. I think that, as was done in the case of the Me Too allegations, the US needs to lift statutes of limitations for all crimes documented in the Epstein files and ultimately proven in courts of law. Also, was Jeffrey Epstein a Russian and/or Israeli asset? These allegations must be investigated and either confirmed or proven incorrect, otherwise they will just not die. Here in Europe, I would also very much welcome investigations into the Deutsche Bank. As a former CFO, my mantra has always been follow the money. US Congress is having a difficult time subpoenaing documentation from the Deutsche Bank, and here in Germany, we need to step up to the mark and facilitate that this information is provided to the appropriate authorities. Also, yesterday I saw that the UK had requested that unredacted Epstein files are provided to them by the American DOJ. So that will be interesting to see how that evolves. Finally, coming back to the title of this episode, are all roads leading to Epstein? In my view, Donald Trump has been trying his very best with all sorts of distractions, such as using tariffs, the insertion into cities and now airports of his state militia ICE, the invasion of Greenland, the capture of Maduro, and even a very bloody and brutal illegal war in Iran to take our eye off the ball. But this ball just keeps on bouncing back to Epstein. And I am sitting on the edge of my seat to see where this ball goes. Anyway, that's all now for today on this subject. I would like to thank you if you got this far. Please feel free to leave a like and subscribe to this podcast. I would also very much welcome any comments or suggestions you may have. I look forward to talking to you in my next episode. Thank you. Bye.